Hi, welcome, brothers and sisters in Christ. This is Dean Hollingsworth. We're continuing with our Bible study of the book of Revelation and learning about the rapture and the soon return of Jesus. Last time we talked about chapter 11, which was where we talked about several things: the loud voice to come up here in the clouds, the hour, and the woes. It talked about the second woe, and so it being past. So today we're going to talk some more about that. These are all key words that should be consistent in the book of Revelation, and as well as the rest of the Bible. And so we need to take a look at that. And so one place that the loud voice is recognized or found is in Revelation 10:2. And so let's start out in Revelation 10, and it said, I saw a strong angel uh, coming down out of heaven, clothed with a cloud. There it is. We got this cloud. We got this loud voice. We got this strong angel coming, and it said, and the rainbow was upon his head, and his face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. And if you go back and look, and when Jesus was talking to the churches in like Revelation chapter 2, you can see that his feet were mentioned as pillars of bronze, like they were on fire. And so it's another description of Jesus. And so it said, and he had in his hand a little book, which was open. We learned that that little book was open when Jesus came back off the cross. He became a victor. The Lamb became victory for the covering of sin. And so that too was discussed in the book of Revelation as Jesus coming to do that. And it said, and he placed his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. And he cried out with a loud voice. There's the loud voice. Okay. And it also, this picture of this person putting his left foot on the land and the right foot on the sea was also described in Daniel. The difference is in Daniel, he lifts up both hands. And then in this verse, he's lifting up one hand, which we'll find out in just a minute. And so the thing you need to know is the sea is symbolic of the Gentiles, the sea of Gentiles. And then the land is the land of Israel, and it's talking about the Jewish people. So here he's talking about, hey, he's getting ready to do something, and he's got his feet on both the Jews and the Gentiles, the believers and the Israel. And so it said he cried out with a loud voice. That loud voice is this loud voice right here. It says, come up here. There's the loud voice. And it says, as when the lion roars, and when he cried out, the seven peals of thunder uttered their voices. And so those seven peals of thunder are associated with just before the seventh trumpet. And so if you keep reading, you'll be able to see more about that, but we'll keep going. But there's a lot of key hints that go on here. And so we got to learn to line those up. When he says, come up here, when he says with a loud voice, when he says coming in the clouds, when he says the hour, or so on. We got to learn to line those up. And so that's the key to the book of Revelation, is taking these key phrases and lining them up so that all the books follow in line according to those key words. And so and then verse 4, chapter 10, verse 4, and when the seven peals of thunder had spoken, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying, seal up these things which the seven peals of thunder have spoken, and do not write them. And the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land lifted up his right hand to heaven. He lifted up his right hand to heaven. What in the heck does that mean? Well, he has his right foot on something. What? If you back up, you can see his right foot is on the sea. So here it is. This is a symbolism of him lifting up his right hand to heaven, and his right foot is on the Gentiles. And so here he is. He's offering up the Gentile nation to God above. This is a symbolic of the rapture right here. And so It's also talked about in Daniel and so on. But in Daniel, he not only lifts up his right hand, he also lifts up his left hand, which is talking about offering up the Israel as a nation is offered up. And so that comes a little later, but kind of close together. And so it says, verse 5, and the angel who I saw standing on the sea and on the land lifted up his right hand to heaven. And he swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and all things, and the earth and the things in it, the sea and the things in it, that there shall be no delay any longer. But in that day of the voice of the seventh angel, there it is, there's the seventh trumpet, when he is about to sound, the mystery of God is finished, and he, as he preached to his servants, the prophets. All right, so here you go. You see, this is at the seventh trumpet. And so you can see right here, it says the hour of testing is here, or the hour, and it's talking about, here it is, the mystery of God is finished at the seventh trumpet. Right here, this is the seventh trumpet. And the time of the Gentiles, if we go back to Revelation 11, the time of the Gentiles is over at the same time, because in Revelation 11:2, if I can find that quickly, my Bible's falling apart. Here it is. 11, start with chapter 11, verse 1. And there was given me a measuring rod like a staff. And someone said, rise up and measure the temple of God and the altar and those who worship in it, and leave out the court which is on the outside of the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the nations, and they will tread it underfoot, the holy city, for 42 months. Okay, so here we go. We've got this time frame of the time of the Gentiles from the time of the beginning, somewhere up here in the beginning, for 42 months. The outer court, which is the court of the Gentiles, is being given over for 42 months. And at the end of that 42 months, whenever that is, the time of the Gentiles is complete. Not only that, the mystery of God is finished. And there's like 3 different places it talks about what in the heck is the mystery of God. And the Ephesians 3:4-6 is probably the best one. It talks about the fact that the mystery of God is that God planned on salvation for the Gentiles, and as well, and that mystery was kept a mystery for years until the time that Jesus came and brought by the knowledge of the mystery, and Paul talked about that mystery quite a bit. Is that the mystery was that salvation is for the Jew and the Gentile, and so we see that here, that it's ended at this point. So here we are in Revelation 10, which we talk right here. We scoot back up here. Revelation 10 talks about the same thing. Everything's the same. It talks about the loud voice to come up here, and it talks about when it finishes. It finishes in this time. And so just so you know, we have these trumpets. If I can get the trumpets on there. There they are. So here are the trumpets, and we have the first 4 trumpets, and these are joined together by a common factor, in which is a thirds, and a third of this, and a third of that. This, and they all have something like it all happened at the same time, and so these are connected. But then these 3 are called woes. If you look at Revelation 9:12, it starts talking about, or Revelation 8:13, it actually starts talking about the woes that are coming, and there's 3 of them. And the first woe was the Revelation 9:12. And so let's go back and let's take a look at that. Revelation 9:12. The first woe is past. Okay, so if we back up a little bit from Revelation 9:12, well, we can see that it's talking about some stuff. If we back way up, go to chapter 9, verse 1, we can see that it's talking about the 5th trumpet. And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star from heaven, which had fallen to the earth, and the key of the bottomless pit was given to him. That's Satan himself being cast down. And so we see this star, and that was the fifth trumpet right here. So here's the star, and he's given the keys. Who gave him the keys? Well, the keys of the bottomless pit, Jesus had these keys, and he gave them to him, and he said, and smoke went up out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by the smoke of the pit. And it keeps on going, and keep reading along, and it says there's going to be these locusts that come along, and they're going to sting and torture the people on the earth for 5 months, except for the ones that are sealed with the seal of God on their forehead. And so, verse 5, and they were not permitted to kill anyone, but to torment for 5 months. So here it is, this terrible thing going on during the fifth trumpet. That's this one right here. This is the fifth trumpet. And so the fifth trumpet is going to be called the first woe as well. And if you keep reading along, it talks all about these evil ones coming out of the pit, and they're doing all these things. They have tails like scorpions, and they punish or hurt man for 5 months. And it said, verse 11, that they have as their king over them the angel of the abyss. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon. In the Greek, it's Apollyon, or Satan. And then verse 12, it says, the first woe is past. So here it is. It tells us real clearly the first woe is the fifth trumpet. Okay? And so then it goes to 13, where Revelation 9:13. And the sixth angel sounded. So here we are at the sixth trumpet. And the voice from, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before God, one saying to the sixth angel, who had a trumpet, release the four angels who are bound at the great Euphrates, and the four angels who had been prepared for an hour, a day, a month, and a year. Here's that hour right there, the same hour we talked about in Revelation 10 and so on. Revelation 11, that hour, here it is, right here. This is the second woe going on, the sixth trumpet. Here's this hour. And I'm going to get, maybe I'll get a chance to tell you more specifically, but that hour and this hour are exactly the same. You can see that this is during the sixth trumpet right here. This is the sixth trumpet, or this one was the first woe, was the fifth trumpet. The sixth trumpet is the second woe, and it's also covering the time called the hour, and other places called the hour of testing. And we were promised not to have to be here for the hour of testing. Okay, so some of the churches, they promised that you shouldn't have to be here for the hour of testing. So if you went back and looked at that, you would see that. Okay, and so we were on the sixth trumpet, and so here it is, verse 15. It said the hour, day, month, and year. Well, if you look at that a little closer, we got hour, day, month, and year. There's a relationship hour. An hour represents a month. Like there's 12 hours in and so those 12 hours represent the month. How many hours in a day? There's 24, but there's 12 hours in a day, 24 in the day and night. And so we have 12 hours, or which represents a day, which is 12 hours. Okay, so we have a month, and so we have the hour and the day, the month and the year. So the hour represents 1 month, and the day represents 1 year. That's where it fit together. And so I would have to go through a lot of study to other places to compare that. But basically, it's telling us that we have this hour, which is 1 month, and we have a day, which is 1 year. Okay, so, and if we kept going in chapter 9, it would tell you the number. There's this 200 million army that's getting ready to come, and it's going to kill 1/3 of mankind. And it says it kills it with these three plagues: fire, smoke, and brimstone. And so 1/3 of mankind is going to be destroyed at the fifth trumpet. So that's going to be a tough time in this world. And we can, if we backed up to the trumpet judgments, we would see 1/3 of the earth, a third of the trees, a third of the sea, a third of the land, and a third of the sky. All of them destroyed, and now we're getting that one third of mankind is going to be destroyed. So the fifth trumpet. Okay, so if we kept going in chapter 9, it goes all the way to talking about these people that were being persecuted. And it says, verse 20, and the rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent of their works. They were, they saw all these things going on. They saw everything happening, but yet they did not repent. And so the question is, why? Do we see people in this world today that are so hard-headed and stubborn that their agenda is more important than anything else? And the answer is yes. Unfortunately, we got people that are so hard-headed that they're willing to burn things down and do all kinds of things to make their point or get their way. And so they're going to do the same thing with God. They're going to reject the fact that God had a plan for them, and they don't want it. It's kind of like when the Israelites were coming into the Promised Land, they all took this negative attitude, and they didn't want God's promise, and so they ended up having to walk around another 40 years before they were allowed in. Okay, so anyway, we see this in Revelation 10. We see Revelation 12. Let's go to Revelation 12. And it's talking about this come up here as well. Revelation 12, it talks about a loud voice in verse 10. Okay, it talks about some signs in the heavens and stuff. Chapter 12, there's a great sign in heaven. It's a woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and there will be 12 stars in her crown. And she's with child. Okay, and this child is a lot of people don't get this, but this woman who's clothed, she's a virgin, but yet she's with child, and she's about to give birth, and this woman is Israel. She's the bride, Israel, and she's with child. Well, who's the child? Who's the offspring of Israel? And the answer is us, the Christians. So here we are, the Christians, and we're a kingdom. It said we were made to be a kingdom. We talked about that in past videos. And so here we are as a kingdom, and it's about to be over. The time of salvation for the Gentiles is about to be over. And so when did we already talked about that. The fact that the time of the Gentiles right there is over, and it was happened after, the seventh trumpet's done. It's over. There's no more chance. And so here we are, and it's talking about this child's about to be born. And so verse 3, it talks about another sign in heaven, a red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. And he has 7 diadems, and his tail swept away a third of the stars. Now, that gives us a key right there of where we're talking about. This chapter, I think a lot of people don't realize Revelation's not in chronological order completely. It tells the story, then it goes back and tells the story again and adds some features, tells the story again and adds some features like anybody would do. You can't tell everything on the first round. And so here we are is telling about these things going on. And so it says, hey, this creature swept away a third of the stars. Well, right here, the fourth trumpet is a third of the stars right there. It says something hit the earth. Let's back up and let's read that just for the heck of it. That's fourth trumpet. So we can back up and read the fourth trumpet if we can find it. Here we are. It's Revelation 8:12. And the fourth angel sounded, and 1/3 of the sun, 1/3 of the moon, and 1/3 of the stars were smitten, so that 1/3 of them might not shine for 1/3 of it, and night in the same way. So here's something interesting that happened. Well, let's keep going. And it says, and I looked, and I held an eagle flying in mid-heaven, saying with a loud voice, oh, there's the loud voice, woe, 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 there's our woes. Everything is just talking about this same time frame. Right here, we got this loud voice going on right here at the top. There's our loud voice. So we're talking about this time. We're talking about the woes. Well, here's our woes right in here. The fifth trumpet is our first woe. You know, the fifth trumpet's our first woe. Sixth trumpet's our second woe, and the third woe is the seventh trumpet. And so here it is. It's telling us, warning us, this is coming. And so it said in the verse 12, the fourth trumpet sounded, and a third of all of this happened. So right here's where we're talking about right now. We're at the third or the fourth trumpet, where a third of the stars are going to be taken away. Now, what that means is pretty interesting. Something's going to happen. And in that process, if you back up to the first trumpet, the second trumpet, and the third trumpet, there was something that went on. In the third trumpet, a great star fell from heaven. If you go to the second trumpet, a great mountain fell into the sea. And so here we are, we're getting bombarded by apparently asteroids, which are coming to the earth and destroying a lot of mankind and a lot of things on the earth. And so now here we are getting ready to talk about what happens after the fourth trumpet when a third of the stars fall. Well, you know, okay, if we have asteroids coming in, they could actually take with them more little asteroids, which can look like stars falling to the heaven. And if we get hit by an asteroid hard, then it could change a lot of stuff. That's how the dinosaurs were killed the first time around, and it pretty much destroyed all life on Earth. And that happened just south of Texas on the Yucatan Peninsula. They've got that located. But how do you lose a third of the sun and the moon? Some people think that this means that they shortened the tribulation. Well, that would be calling God a liar. He said there's 7 years of tribulation. The answer is, if we're hit hard and we start spinning faster, then what's going to happen is a day is going to be shortened, and so is the night going to be shortened. So if something hits us and makes us spin faster, then we would shorten the days and the nights and shorten the amount of time we see the stars. And so therefore, apparently that's what's going to happen, is that this is some kind of impact. And all these things here happen about the same time. It's like bang. And so the impact causes a lot of destruction. Basically, a third of the world is going to be destroyed, and in all kinds of ways. And so that's where we get that from. Now, in Revelation 12:10, we were talking about 12. We was in Revelation 12. So Revelation 12:10, I heard a loud voice in heaven. Here's that loud voice again. We got to line those up. And it says, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come, and the accuser of the brethren have been thrown down. So there's Satan thrown down, but yet there's this baby that we were talking about, this child, which is in chapter 12, has been taken up to heaven. Oh, that's all of the Christians up until that point that maybe died or whatever. It could have died from this impact. And so they are taken up to heaven and into the clouds. So here's our clouds, and here we are right here in this time frame of the fifth trumpet, the sixth trumpet, and all of a sudden we see, boom, this baby has been taken up. And it says, if we go back and read it, it says verse 5, chapter 12, verse 5, and she gave birth to a son, a male child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God and the throne. So the child was taken up, but watch what happened. And the woman fled into the wilderness. What? The woman didn't, it was still there on earth and had to be taken into the wilderness for its protection. And it says where she might be nourished for 1,260 days, or 3.5 years. There's Israel. Israel's going to be on this earth during this time. And but guess what? So is some of these Christian people are going to be pulled up out of there too. And so that it's kind of important that we understand that this hour of testing, this come up here, the second woe, all of those things fall together, not at the beginning of the tribulation, but in the more in the middle of the tribulation. And so if you really watch it, you can see that. And now, to give you a little more interesting thought on this, and this will be my last point for today, is that in chapter 7, it's talking about this time where these people are sealed. And it said, verse 9 of chapter 7, it says, "After these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude, which no one could count, from every nation and all tribes and all people and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, with palm branches in their hand. And they cried out with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our God who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb. And all of the angels were standing around the throne and around the elders and around the four living creatures, which are all on the throne of God. And they fell down uh, on their faces before the throne of God and worshiped him, saying, Amen, blessed and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might to be to our God forever and ever. Amen. And one of the elders answered, saying to me, these who are clothed in the white robes, who are they? And from where did they come? So here he is asking John, who are these people? Who's this multitude that came from every nation in the world? And he said, John said, and I said to him, my Lord, you know. In other words, I don't have a clue. You got to tell me. And he said to me, these are the ones who come out of the great tribulation, and they have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. And for this reason they will be, they are before the throne of God, and they will serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne shall spread his tabernacle over them, and they shall hunger nor shall they thirst any more. And so on. For the Lamb is in the center of the throne, shall be their shepherd, and shall guide them into springs of water and of life. And so here we are. We've got this thing going on where these people are being taken out of the Great Tribulation. Well, I don't know how much you know about it or not, but it talks about we have the tribulation, and then we have the Great Tribulation. Well, the Great Tribulation starts in the second half, and that is where we're talking about right now. Somewhere in here that we have the trumpets, and so they are taken out of the Great Tribulation. Means they had to be in the tribulation. And so we're starting to see more and more proof that these people, whoever they were taken up as a kingdom. This is the baby, up into the throne of God, and they were protected forever and ever. Now, how can you go stand before the throne of God? You can't see God. You can't touch God, or you can't even look on God because we have sin. Well, the answer to that is this. These people, the baby who was taken up, is the kingdom of the Christians who are covered by the blood of Christ. So therefore, we are perfect in the sight of God. And so therefore, we can go stand with him at the throne of God because only one reason, because of the blood of Christ. And so this causes some problems with a lot of people, and we'll go more and more and more in detail to prove our point about what's going on. And if you went back and looked at the two great witnesses, they are taken up right here as well. They're taken up at the hour of testing. So anyway, I think that's plenty to think about and a lot to go back and research. If you have any questions, please feel free to put some comments at the bottom, and I'll be glad to answer those in the next video if I can. And so I hope you got something out of this and start to learn, hey, I've got to line up the loud voice. I've got to line up the come up here. I've got to line up the hour. The woes have to be lined up. Everything has to fall into place. And the only way you do that is by study, and draw pictures of where everything goes. Now, just to finish it up, chapter 4, which is a lot of preachers say, okay, chapter 4, no more mention of the churches, and that's absolutely right, but they don't see this part. And the first voice that I heard the like of the sound of a trumpet. Oh my gosh, a trumpet. Speaking with me said, "Come up here." There it is. Chapter 4 is in the tribulation after it's right here where it says, "Come up here." That's it right there. Come up here. Chapter 4 is right there where most people put that at the beginning of the tribulation. And according to this, it's not. If you kept going down a little further, you would see the peals of thunder, which is right at the end of the seven trumpets. And so you can, once you start to see that these things all match up and line up, you can get a lot better picture of the book of Revelation and how it fits together. And so hopefully this kind of got you an introduction to where in the heck is the rapture going to be and how things going to happen during the tribulation. We'll talk more about it next time. I hope you enjoyed it, and please feel free to comment and feel free to ask questions, and we'll talk more next time. Thanks a lot. God bless. Bye.